Power Podcast.
Back, long time no see, no hear from. I've been out dealing with a little bit of a cold. I apologize for not being able to put up a podcast last week, but wasn't like I missed a whole lot. Wasn't like there was a lot of things that were different. Unfortunately, we now have a situation in college basketball with the coronavirus. Ivy League recently canceled their conference tournament. They will automatically give their bids to the regular season champion on the women's side to Princeton, and to the men's side, Yale. So those teams are set and ready to go for March Madness. It's a shame, but I do understand why it's being done. The Mid-American Conference has decided to restrict attendance and is generally closed to the public. Again, I've seen people say comments and think it's a dumb and that it's fear-mongering and everything else. But I think at this time, we have to do what's best for the athletes and what's best for the general public. And being that this new virus is out there and that there might not be potentially a vaccine accessible to the majority of public for anywhere between a year to 18 months, I mean, this is the new reality. You have to be careful. Now, do I think closing down the games completely is excessive? Yeah. I kind of agree with what the MAC conference is doing, which is restricting the attendance and keeping it to, a small set and just, having the athletes play each other. I guess I'm more in favor of that. Now, I've seen others come out like Dan Wolken. I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing that. Wolken of the USA Today, who actually put together a very good article asking for consideration that is it now time to think about canceling the NCAA tournament? Again, this is going to have a very huge and very big effect on people. Of course, you hear everything from this is a total, reach to I don't understand why people are panicking. I get it. I get it both ways. I truly do. I understand both sides of the argument, but I think what we need to do more than anything is we have to remember what it is that we're here for. And that is we're here to enjoy the beauty of the game. I do not think, and at least right now with the news, it does not appear that the ACC, the SEC, and the Big Ten Conference are going to make any changes to what they are doing in order to facilitate any restrictions on their conference tournament. Again, with the coronavirus moving through the national media, who knows? There could definitely be some changes to this in the next coming weeks. But as of right now, it's the Ivy League that is totally closed and the MAC conference. With that all being said, the NBA has also decided to restrict access to the locker rooms of players after games. I've seen some players go and say, I think CJ McCollum of the Portland Trailblazers was one such athlete who made a public declaration that basically said he is going to not do any more autographs for the rest of the year due to the coronavirus. So I think there's nothing wrong with taking precautions. And at this point, with the inability to get a vaccine out to the general public in a reasonable time frame, people who are immune compromised or older, like the elderly, which totally ravaged a nursing home in Washington State, I don't think these are bad ideas. I really don't. I know it's going to catch some flack. I know people don't want to do that because they feel like it's giving in to the fear. I do understand wanting to take a stand for the safety of everybody involved. So got no arguments from me. I have a good friend who works in the New England area. He just posted that his conference has been closed, that it is not going to perform due to the coronavirus. It's all the way around. It really is. And look, it's hard to say people are overreacting, and it's hard to say people shouldn't be doing this. And I know we live in an era where people want to fight the power and don't want to give in to fear. But look, at the end of the day, we all have to be worried about safety. We just do. And with March comes the hyper focus on the 2020 NBA draft prospects. I'm going to do it a little differently right now. I know that the majority of people out here already know or have a very good grasp on the North American born players that are probably the top prospects for the 2020 NBA draft. So what I'm going to concentrate on is who I believe are the 4 foreign league basketball players that are going to affect the draft this year. Everybody knows LaMelo Ball. Everybody knows RJ Hampton. They're both playing in Australia, doing very well. But I think what we need to start talking about right now is Denny Avdia, Killian Hayes, Theo Maledon, and Alexei Pokasevsky. These guys are premier talents, and they are going to affect the NBA process this year more than maybe past years. So let's first focus on the highest rated player, at least on my board right now, which is Denny Avdia of this group. When Amari Caspi went down with an injury that knocked him out of some games, Avdia stepped up, and he does wonderful things. He seems to create off the dribble. He's a very, very conscious passer. Has some ability to finish in traffic. You know, he's decently athletic. I wouldn't say he's a beast. He has 3-point range on his jump shot. Very cerebral. Does a lot of things well. Definitely more athletic than Danilo Gallinari was at the same age. But there are some limitations with him. One, even though in the league that he plays in right now in Israel, he looks like he's a very good athlete, that is going to be muted quite a bit when he goes in the NBA. He's already a so-so defender, and with that muted athleticism, it's going to really become problematic for him. And finishing in the traffic. Now, again, he creates off the dribble. He has no problem pulling up. He has no problem step back shooting. He has no problem driving and dishing. But the ability to get past a defender, yeah, he doesn't have that. And that is going to limit him from getting into that lane. And when he gets into the lane now, it ain't the prettiest. Sometimes it looks a little bit awkward and quite unorthodox, which, again, could work out to his benefit, being that he is a little bit unorthodox. There is some leeway in the NBA. Regardless of everything that I've said, the one big thing for him is his size and ability. And right now, he could go anywhere from 3 to 6, and it wouldn't shock me at all. The next player that I would have would be Killian Hayes. There might not be another point guard in this draft that has the court vision Hayes has. I mean, this guy, he is on the constant hunt to get his players involved in the game. Now, here's what's interesting. He's not Alonzo Ball. And what I mean by that is he is much more aggressive offensively. You know, he uses pick and roll. He might be the best pick and roll player right now at the point guard position. He might be. I mean, he really understands the fundamental concept of how to use that, how to use it as a shield off his defender and take an uncontested three, how to use it with a slight hesitation while the big man rolls. He does so many things well off that pick and roll. It just gives him a huge upside. Again, he has a decent first step, but what he doesn't have is that overall explosiveness to get complete separation. But he can get you on the first step. It's just most of the time players catch up. 3-point shooting has improved. He's playing in a lesser competitive league, making the switch from France to Germany. Definitely caught me by surprise because most of the time this does not happen. And it's paid off. He's had a year that definitely upped him and has helped what I think people's perception of him as a prospect was. I think he'll go anywhere between, I'd say 6 to 10. Theo Maledon, he has the most potential of Avadia and Hayes. And unlike them, he is a great athlete, still learning the game, but plays very poised, very mature, under control. Despite being an exceptional athlete, he doesn't really put himself in positions where, he gets wild. He just does things so smoothly. He looks like he's been playing the game for years. And look, the team he plays on, they're a veteran club. They're actually challenging in their league for the title. So, that should let you know everything you need to know about where he's viewed in France. Like I said, he's got exceptional potential. But the one thing about him is, while he does a lot of things well, he's like really not a master of anything right now. I think the thing that, if you said to me, what's his NBA skill? I would say his NBA skill or his NBA asset would be potential. Potentially, he has the most upside of anybody in the top 10 from outside the USA. I think he has more potential than, say, a LaMelo Ball. He has a lot there that scouts like and that NBA teams could definitely tap into as the draft gets closer. And then finally, this leaves us with the dark horse and a guy that has a complete and utter volatile draft stock. His stock could go as high as, late lottery to early second round. And that's Alexei Pasevsky. Unique is an understatement. Just amazing. 3-point range, very skilled, great shot blocker, ball handler. From an athlete perspective, despite his size of 7 foot, he really runs the floor, can go coast to coast. Streaky at times shooting, yes, and still is growing into his body, but the potential is there. If you've never seen him play, I would compare him to a more power forward oriented Tony Kukoc with less passing ability, but the ability to handle the ball, he does see the floor very well, is a great finisher, at least in the foreign aspect right now. Again, he does those things better than Tony, but what I mean by my comparison to Tony Kukoc, what I mean is his ability to face the basket. He's very comfortable with the ball in his hands, extremely comfortable, actually. And I haven't seen a player with his height, with his age, to be this skilled this early in quite some time. He can go anywhere. His draft stock is very fluid. There's no real downside to him other than he could be a player that is picked on potential and never takes that next step. Without a doubt, out of all 4 of the players, he's the most high risk of the 4, but he's also got the most upside. LeBron James emerged this week as a player that people are talking about for MVP. And, I'm always interested in the view that people seem to have about LeBron James, and that is there seems to almost be a fatigue with his greatness. And it's weird to me. Growing up in the era that I grew up in the 90s and in the late 80s, Michael Jordan was a guy who kind of invoked similar hate and fatigue from fans because he was the guy who was the chosen one. And LeBron James has, without a doubt, a group of fans that love him, and he has a large group of fans that despise him. He's almost like a Muhammad Ali. Ali said people would go to the fights to see him win, but the majority would go to the fights to see him lose. And that's where LeBron James is in this discussion. People have grown so fatigued by him that they say, you know what, I'm tired of talking about this guy. Forget this guy. He's not that great. And it's funny because throughout all sports, you kind of see this. You saw this happen with the Fab Five of Michigan. When the first year they were the plucky freshmen and everybody loved them. And look at the fun that they're playing with. They're playing playground basketball. It's great. And then the second year it was, why don't these guys stop trash talking? They need to grow up. And then the hate started for him. Floyd Mayweather, early in his career, loved. And then later in his career, despised, not liked. It is very unique in that aspect with LeBron James. I think he's very similar in that capacity. For whatever reason, there is a group of fans that will never like him, that will always look at him as a pretender and are tired of talking about him and tired of having people talk to them about him. Because there's nothing that can be said that they're going to agree with. They think he's not that great. They just do. To those people, I'll say this, because we just lost a legend in Kobe Bryant. We had Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant was the transitional person between Michael and LeBron. I think if there was one thing that Kobe's death provided for the majority of NBA fandom, is the acknowledgement that we didn't hate him. I think that before Kobe Bryant's death, I think a lot of people did not know how much they liked him or admired him or respected him. I really don't. And some people are going to say, well, Matt, isn't that a process of just people grieving? Because with Tupac and Biggie, people make statements about them. I would say typically yes, but on the flip side, I would say no, because I saw more men distraught that I knew weren't Kobe fans, that I knew felt like they didn't understand the value that Kobe Bryant had on them. And what I'm basically saying is, you guys have to appreciate LeBron James, whether you want to or not. I understand he has done things that may have rubbed you the wrong way and done things that you didn't agree with. But here's the thing. We ain't going to get another like him. We're just not. No matter what we think about LeBron James, we're not going to get another like him. We didn't get another Michael. We got something darn close to Kobe Bryant, but we didn't get another Michael. We're not going to get another Kobe. So understand that. If you don't understand anything else, understand that. LeBron James is something that does not come along too often. And before he goes, you might want to take a little bit of that hate out of your heart and just absorb the greatness. Because once he starts to decline, it's going to be rapid and it's going to be sudden almost. Because we saw it with Kevin Garnett. We saw it with Paul Pierce. It happens. We saw it with Peyton Manning in football. It happens. And all you have left in is memories. And I think the reason why Michael Jordan is beloved as much as he is today is because when he retired the first time, people understood what he meant to them. Because he was snatched from them. Take it for what it is and understand it. I don't know if LeBron wins the MVP this year. I don't know. But I will say this. Whether he wins one this year or never wins one for the rest of his career, understand that the sunset is starting to creep into LeBron James's career. And when he goes, we're not going to see another one like him. So try to enjoy him while you have him, because we're not going to have him very much longer. We've had him since 2003. It's 2020. We'll be lucky if he's still playing at a high level. So feel that, understand that, respect that. Stop all this hate of LeBron James and MVP. It gets a little ridiculous. So I'm going to answer some mail real quick. I get mail a lot as an NBA draft historian. And rather than write long replies, I figure, hey, I'll answer them. Jack asks, if Obi Toppin goes in the top 5, will he be the highest Dayton player ever drafted? No. In order for Obi Toppin to be the highest Dayton player drafted, he would have to go in number 2. If he goes number 3, he actually would tie with Jim Paxson. And if that last name sounds familiar to you, yes, he is Jim Paxson Jr. and John Paxson's father. He went 3rd in 1956 to the Minneapolis Lakers. So if Obi Toppin goes 3rd, where some mocks I think I've seen have him listed, he would not be the highest Dayton Flyer in the program's history. That honor actually belongs to Jim Paxson. And just because we're kind of on this, Anthony Edwards, if he goes number 1 or number 2, well, first off, if he goes number 1, he'll be the first number 1 pick overall in Georgia's basketball history. And if he goes 1 or 2, he'll replace Dominique Wilkins as the highest drafted Georgia Bulldog of all time. If you don't know, Dominique was drafted 3rd in the 1982 draft by the Utah Jazz. So it's definitely on the table. Anthony Edwards could definitely go number 1 overall very easily. Would not shock me. So he could definitely be the new placeholder for that program's history. Last question. Derek asks, with Luka Doncic being the gold standard for international basketball, do you believe going forward more international basketball players will be drafted? Great question. And I answered this a while back, Derek, if you follow me on Facebook. And in short, listen, I know recency bias is an issue in many things, but as much as I like Luka Doncic, that statement is woefully inaccurate. And this is kind of that issue that occurs with being an NBA draft historian, where you say things and people get offended. So back to just dance around this topic a little bit here. So in 2016, I had a friend that used to work for Marty Blake and Associates, and he was a scout, and he basically felt like I was being disrespectful because I was talking and documenting the issue of Thon Maker's age that came into question of that draft. Now, I don't know if many of you guys remember, but this was a big thing in a couple days leading up to the NBA draft from 2016. There were documents, there were yearbooks of people saying that Thon Maker is older than what he's perceived to be. Now, I was just talking about it because as a draft historian, it is my duty to document these things. I mean, he was upset. You would think Thon Maker was his son. And I maybe it was from being from the same continent of Africa, which was both their origins. Thon Maker, in case people don't know, was from the South Sudan before he went to Australia. And this gentleman that I'm talking about was part of the continent of Africa. I'm not going to give where. Some people may know him. But he was mad. He really was mad. And he basically, in so many words, now we've been friends since 2006. 2006, maybe 2005 actually. Friends. Talked on the phone, called each other, had conversations. He stopped talking to me. He actually told me, I can't talk to you anymore because, I'm trying to remember the right language he used, but more along the lines he was thinking I was gossiping about Thon Maker's age. No. This was what you have to do. It's no different than, and I'm sure many people don't remember this because, again, most people don't care because they aren't historians. I have to care about this kind of stuff. But Jake Sokolidis, Jake Sokolidis was supposed to go in the top 15 of the NBA draft. He fell on draft night because the team, which is, I want to say it's AEK. Anyways, it's AEK. They're a team in Greece. They sent out a fax to all the NBA teams and let them know that Jake would not be playing in the NBA next season. It caused his draft stock to plummet. So he went 25th to Phoenix, and most people thought it was a steal. And he had a reasonable career, but he didn't really do anything special. But it was a decent career. But anyways, in the history books, that has to be documented, that was part of the reason why he fell. Because before this, he was looked at, believe it or not, as a lottery pick. I do the same thing. I gauge where players are before the draft. I gauge where players are after the draft. There's nothing personal involved in it for me. I'm literally giving what the account of history is. That's just what it is. It's not me being vindictive when I cover the history of the NBA draft. I'm literally a historian. History, and in particular, historians are a shrinking lot because more and more people don't like it because it almost infringes upon their reality. While some people are draft analysts and they sit around and they review players and they review trends, sure, they worry about that stuff, but it's literally of the last 3 years. I'm literally looking at the NBA draft from a much wider lens. So when I make statements, people either will disagree, but will never debate, because a debate would then require them to show that I'm wrong. And when I'm talking from a historical position, I'm not using feelings and emotions. I'm using the data of the day to make these claims. To me, at the end of the day, if you don't believe nothing else, understand that I don't have it out for your team. I don't have a problem with your team. I'm just a guy that's a historian that's trying to give an accurate accounting of what the time was before the draft, what the time was during the draft, and what the time was after the draft. Because that's all you can do to really gain an accurate view of what the draft is supposed to be. I mean, case in point, so back to the Luka Doncic. The NBA since 2010 has drafted 105 basketball players from foreign basketball leagues. That number does not include international players like Ben Simmons or any others that played in North American high school or North American D1 colleges before they were drafted. Out of 540 players drafted by NBA teams, the international market accounts for 19.4% of the draft capital that is spent, which is actually slightly over the 18% international players make up of the NBA. In the entire NBA, you have about 18%. Okay? So I ask, how is Luka the breaker of stereotypes? I mean, based on the numbers, it appears that Dirk, not Luka, would be the breaker of the stereotype of international basketball players. When Dirk entered the league in 1998, only 66 players were drafted from international basketball teams. Since 1950, that's an average of 0.7 players drafted per year. After Dirk Nowitzki's draft, the NBA in the next 21 drafts would go on to draft 241 players from foreign basketball leagues. That's an average of 11.5 players per year. That's the math, folks. That's the math. So if you still want to believe that Luka Doncic is the breaker of stereotypes and the fulfillment of the international basketball community as a whole, you're falling into recency bias. Dirk Nowitzki is that guy. Sorry. The numbers, the metrics, the attitude of NBA teams all comes quickly after Dirk Nowitzki. And let me say one other thing too. Could we also say that Dirk Nowitzki, and again, this might be controversial. I don't view it that way, but maybe it is controversial. Could we also say that Dirk Nowitzki basically killed the idea of the stretch four? I mean, because what is a stretch four now? Is there such thing as a stretch four now? And what I mean by is a stretch four used to be a descriptive word to indicate that a power forward had perimeter-oriented skills. Doesn't that fit most power forwards today? Just saying. I just, at this point, a power forward has to have these skills. It's not really up for debate now. If you're a power forward and you're not able to hit threes or dribble the ball in short periods of time, you're definitely at a disadvantage in today's NBA marketplace. Again, Dirk Nowitzki's impact is so huge, I don't think people really conceptualize just how much he changed things in the NBA. We want to give credit to Stephen Curry. We want to give credit to Mike D'Antonio. But for whatever reason, the name Dirk Nowitzki never gets attached to this, and it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. So look, that's all the time I have today. Please, again, remember to subscribe, share, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Talk to you later. Peace.